Hello everyone, welcome back to Ansarkari. In this video, we'll be continuing with the ratio questions. And the first question for today says, the sum of 46,800 is divided among A, B, and D in such a way that the ratio of the combined share of A and D to the combined share of B and C is 8:5. The ratio of the share of B to that of C is 5:4. A receives 18,400. If X is the difference between the share of A and B and Y is the difference between the share of C and D, then what is the value of X minus Y? So it is a pretty long question, and to decode it, we can start from the end. For example, the question is saying what is the value of X minus Y? Very easy, this we can do if we know the value of X and Y. Now they're saying X is the difference between the share of A and B and Y is the difference between the share of C and D, which means that to find the value of X and Y, we need to find the value of shares of A and B and C and D. यानी कि चारों के ही in short. So this part of question we can solve very easily if we know the shares of A, B, C, and D. We explained it till now. Now, a sum of rupees 46,800 is varied among all. So there are several pieces of information that are given to us. For example, total sum kitna hai? It is this. A ko kitna mila? It is this. And several other ratios are also given to us. So if we write here, we write here A, B, C, and D. Now, sum of, in the ratio of the combined share of A and D, which means that A plus D ka share to the combined share of B plus C is 8:5. So we now know that the ratio of the shares of like A plus D to that of B plus C is 8:5. Now, one key information that was given to us that the total sum is this. So we can very simply identify that A plus D and B plus C ka together kitna zyada share hai. How can we do that? We can add these two, which will come out to be equal to 13. So 13 will be equal to 46,800 rupees. So 13 units is equal to rupees these many. So the value of 1 unit will be equal to how much? 800 divided by 13. And when we proceed with it, what is the value that we receive here? So if we try to cancel, them, that is divide this number by 13, we get the value of 1 unit to be equal to 3,600. Therefore, 1 unit is equal to rupees these many. So 8 will be equal to 8 multiplied by 3,600, which will be equal to 28,800, and 5 value will be equal to 18,000. Now, the relation between B and C is also given to us. Okay, the ratio of B to that of C is 5:4. Which means that out of this 18,000, we can find out कि B को कितना and C को कितना मिला. It is 5:4. So 9 unit will be equal to rupees. So which means that B share will be equal to 5 multiplied by, because B ka part is 5. 5 multiplied by which is 10,000, and rest it will be 8,000. That will be of the share of C. So we found out C's share and B's share. So B's was this, and then we have C's share, which is 8,000. Now, since we know the total share, like of B plus C and A plus D, we can identify that it was this much. And now one information that how we can we identify the share of A and D separately. Information is given here that A receives rupees 18,400. So we can subtract 18,400 from this total sum of A and D. We'll get here 10,400. So D receives 10,400 and A here receives 18,400 as it was already given. Now trying to simplify it a bit, if we cut down at least like by 100, if we divide them all by 100, we get at 184. Or perhaps the ratio was asked, right? Exactly. So if X is the difference between the share of A and B, so the difference between the share of A and B here will be equal to 8,400. A minus B is equal to 8,400, which is equal to X. And Y is the difference between the share of C and D, which will be equal to 2,400. Right. This will be equal to Y and this will be equal to C minus D. Or perhaps D minus C. Difference concept. Yeah. This side more here. So now these values are given to us, and now they're saying what is the value of x minus y. So very simply, the value of x minus y will be equal to rupees 6,000. Like if you subtract 2,400 from 8,400, so this will be the answer. So in short, we just find out the clues and we just need to find out the clues and information of the given question, and then we can easily solve, and the answer here will be equal to 6,000. So that will be the value of x minus y. Now let's begin with the next question. The next question says cost of 4 pens, 6 notebooks and 9 files is rupees this, and the cost of 3 pens, 4 notebooks and 2 files is this. But is the cost of 5 pens, 8 notebooks and 6 files? Now for this, what we need to find out is simply the cost of 1 pen, 1 notebook and 1 file. In these type of questions, for example, here in this question, we have 3 variables, right? Cost of 1 pen, cost of 1 notebook, and cost of 1 file. So when we have 3 variables, we need to have at least 3 equations in order to find out the value of all the 3 variables. When there are only 2 variables, or perhaps when there are only 2 equations and we have 3 variables, we cannot find out the value of all the variables. Therefore, this question gives us only 2 equations. One we can form from this, and second we can form from this part, right? And third is this the question itself. So here also we use the hit and trial method, that is by adding and subtracting the equations. So these are not directly ratio questions, but similar to them. For example, here the application it becomes different, how we subtract and how we form the equations. So let the cost of 1 pen be X. So I just write here. Cost of 1 notebook be equal to Y and cost of 1 file be equal to Z. So here is just let. Hence, when we form the equation, we get a 4x plus 6y. Sorry. 4x plus 6y plus 9z will be equal to rupees 305. Then cost of 3 pens plus 4 notebooks plus 2 files will be equal to 145. So first we'll try to find out by subtracting these two that what is the equation. Generally what happens is in these kind of questions, the equation that we get here, if we multiply that by any such number, we get the equation that we need here. For example, the equation we need here is 5x plus 8y plus 16z. And we need to find out what it is equal to. So this particular format can be, it may be or it may not be seen here in this particular place. So we are just trying by using this kind of method. So what we can do is we can subtract these, and on subtracting here, directly what we get is 160, 160, and here we get plus 7x. Then here we get plus 2y because we're subtracting here, right? Just write a bracket. and here we get 1x. Now what we can do is we can find out and weigh so that we can get this equation. Now, obviously, if we multiply this particular equation by 2, we won't get this. Actually, we must try to multiply by 5, right? Because if we multiply it by 5, we will get 10 here and 35 here. But we need 8 and 16. So this option goes wrong. Now, another way by which we can try is we can try to add or subtract by these given equations themselves so as to get the information. So, what we can try here is we can clearly see that if we add this equation, now this is completely hit and trial method, and totally if the thought clicks at that particular moment, then we can do these kind of questions. Okay, how can we interlink them or add, subtract, multiply, divide with the above given equations? All I'm trying to explain here is that this is also a kind of method which can be used in such type of questions. So when we add this third equation with this first equation, I get here 5x, that is 4x plus 1x, plus 6x plus 2y, that is 8y, plus 9z plus 7z, which again gives us 16. Oh, sorry, the head was supposed to be z. 16z, right? So, and also since we're adding the LHS part, we also need to add the RHS part, that is 305 plus 165. So it will be 465. And hence we receive the answer. Now the question here could have been two notebooks, two pens. Then it could have been two notebooks. And then similarly, it could have been another number as well. But of course, we need to just find out. For example, here, if you find out the equation, here subtracting them won't be easy. So this equation could not have followed up. They might also have told us to find out maybe four notebooks, then four pens, six notebooks, and that of nine files. So then we would have added this equation and this equation. So it just depends to how do we fill the missing piece here. And the main important thing that we had to understand here was कि equations के बीच में कैसे relation हो सकता है, and then further how can we find out the particular values of the equation that is being asked. So 465 is the answer here. Cannot be determined would have been the case अगर ऐसा यहाँ पे कोई suppose 3 notebooks कोई number दे देते, 2 pens and sorry 5 is here. Suppose this was so find out करना, it would have been really tough and it would not have been possible. The cost of all these. So answer for this particular question is 465, and I hope you understood the way of thinking in this question. Now let's move on to a similar question with this of this particular type. So, since I explained in the previous question, okay, when we have three variables, three equations are needed. In this question, we can see that particular case as well. This is the first equation, this is the second equation, this is the third equation. Therefore, we can very easily find out okay, what is the actual value of all these. Usme we could not find the actual value, but we could find out the cost. जिनका cost होता. But in this question, we can find out the actual value as well. So what is the cost of 39 pens and 13 erasers? This is what the question is asking, and the cost is given. So I'm not reading the question since it is very similar to the previous question. There's the difference is that this one extra equation is provided to us. So cost of 8 pencils, I can assume it to be 8x plus 5 pens plus 3 erasers is equal to rupees 111. In cost of 9 pens, 9 pencils, 6 pens plus 5 is equal to 130. And in the cost of 16 pencils, 11 pens, and 3 erasers will be equal to 221. Now they're asking what is the cost of 39 pens and 13 erasers. So here we simply have to substitute and then find out the um, values of all these variables, and it will be a pretty long method. So that can be one method. Another method can be if we contemplate a bit upon it, and it will be tough. It won't strike at the moment itself. But one way of doing this can be if we add all these three equations. Then we get a 33x plus 22y plus 11z, which will be equal to 462. So we receive this here. Now, since we could have focus upon this part, 39 and 13, they're all multiples of 13, which means that this thing is pretty similar or it includes something related to 13 itself. So what we can focus upon this part here is, if we divide this equation, if we divide this particular equation by uh, 3, then we get here, or perhaps by 11. Yeah, if we divide this by 11 is a greater number, so we can get here 3x plus 2y plus 1z, which will be equal to 42. So we get this equation. Now, if we multiply this whole equation by 13, we get here 39x plus 26y plus 13z, which is equal to 546. So this is the particular answer. And also the question here was complete because it was 13 erasers, and also it was regarding so pens. Oh, this was supposed to be pencils. Pencils, 13 erasers, and 26 pens. So this is the question and how we'll be able to solve it. Another way could have been by substitution, but that would have been a really long method. And also we could have found out the actual values. And if the questions was restricted to just the pencils and erasers, as it was originally written, then that method itself would have been used. But now, since they have given this whole point and the question was incomplete, therefore, this particular thing can is completely suitable, and the answer here will be equal to 546. So I'll just explain the method quickly as to how we'll find out the actual values of x, y, and z. ताकि अगर सिर्फ इतना question it is restricted to this much, then how can we find out? So in this, what happens is we use the elimination method. Substitution method might get a really long and even get complicated in such huge equations. So we can use the elimination method as well. How does it proceed? For example, we in elimination method we eliminate a particular variable from the two equations. So here we can see that 3 that is present here as well and here as well. So what we can do is we can subtract this equation or the first equation from the third equation, right? And when we do so, what will we get? See, 16x plus 11y plus 3z is equal to 221 minus 8x plus 5y plus 3z equals to 111. So when we put minus here, तो minus से सारी terms क्या आगे आ जाता है, as we did. So 0, 1, 1. यहाँ पे just get cancelled. 3z minus 3z कितना होगा? 0. So here will get 0 itself. तो कुछ भी नहीं रहेगा यहाँ पे. 11y minus 5y will be equal to 6y. Plus we get 8x. तो यानी कि 8x plus 6y plus 0 is equal to 110. Second हम क्या कर सकते हैं? We can subtract this from this equation from this. ये हम कैसे कर सकते हैं? Here 5z and 3z, or rather not this. Rather we can also take a second equation and the first equation, right? They're smaller as well. तो इनमें हम क्या कर सकते हैं in order to reply? Wait, I'll just reduce the size of it. So we can take these first two equations. So we can write here 9x plus 6y plus 5z equals to 130. And also we can take 8x, right? 8x plus 5y plus 3z is equal to 111. Now we know कि यहाँ पे कुछ भी same नहीं है, तो cancel नहीं हो पाएगा, variable बचेंगे, right? When we subtract all these. So here what we can do is we can try to make the terms equal. For example, here if I multiply this whole equation by 3, I get 15. And here I will have to multiply by 5. Right? This is the approach that we use. So 9 threes will be equal to 27x plus 6 multiplied by 3 will be equal to 18y plus we'll have 15z here, and this multiplied by 3 will be equal to 390. Then 8 multiplied by 5 is equal to 40x plus 5 multiplied by 5, 25y plus 15z will be equal to 555. Now if we subtract these two, we can cancel these two directly. यहाँ पे we will get the answer in minus. For example, here we get minus 13. So minus 13x. यहाँ पे इनको minus करेंगे तो we get minus 7y. Then यहाँ पे when we subtract these, we get so 155 plus 10. So we get minus 165. राइट सो दिस विल बी द पर्टिकुलर इक्वेशन, फिर माइनस वगैरह हटा सकते हैं एंड वी कैन डायरेक्टली। तो अब हमारे पास क्या मिलता है, अब हमें ऐसी दो इक्वेशन मिलती है जिसमें सिर्फ टू ही वेरिएबल्स है। तो ऑफ कोर्स इट इज वेरी इजी टू सॉल्व देम। यहाँ पे एक्स की वैल्यू we can just shift everything to the right hand side, which we have done previously also many times, and then x की value we can substitute here, and then we can solve for the value of y. After getting y's value, we can use other equations to find out, like we can put the value of y here, and then simply we can find out the value of x and y. The rest part becomes very simple. This was just the elimination method that I explained, because in case if this thing doesn't strike or we are not able to do this, then we can solve by this method originally or. So the answer for this question will be equal to 546. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you understood the two parts or the two types of questions in these kind of three variables and three equations. Although there is a very less chance of these type of questions to come in the paper, still the method it can be used in other questions as well. So thank you everyone for joining. I hope you understood. We'll continue in the next video.